Hi everyone, welcome back. First of all, happy new year to everyone. It's a long time since I posted a video, but yeah, I will try to put my latest playlist in line. So yeah, I'm going to finish off some of my pending playlist. One of the playlist was about Auth0 integrations, Auth0 integrations with Nextjs, React.js, Nest.js, and any external library like Nextauth. And after that, I will start running another playlist which talks about nodejs deployments, either using serverless framework, SLS deploy, or using CDK stack, or using CloudFormation. So we will get end-to-end understanding of microservice deployment on AWS platform. So in this video, let's get started. We have already done the integration of Auth0 with React. Now, Auth0 also provided different SDKs. You can integrate Auth0 with Angular, with React, with the Nextjs. With the Nextjs, there are two options. So here we have two different options. I mean, you are writing a Nextjs 13 or 14 app. So you can use directly nextauth that provide a seamless integration. And it's really easy to integrate. Or you can use Auth0 SDK and you can directly start using Auth0 without even using nextauth. So it depends on us. If we just want to use a nextauth and do the configure applications and everything here as a provider, or we can just use Auth0 SDK and utilize all the Auth0 features which it provides. So in this video, we will talk about Auth0 SDK. Auth0 SDK is nothing but a library which is provided by Auth0 when you wanted to use Auth0 integration with the Nextjs, because you want to do the login with Auth0. In Auth0, you can enable the login with the Google, Facebook, Twitter, or Azure AD or SAML, SSO. All these kind of integrations are already provided by Auth0. So you just go with the Nextjs, include their Auth0 SDK, and start writing the login screen, which can enable you to log in with Auth0. So we will talk about Auth0 Organizations also, because sometimes the SaaS product which you are building can be a multi-tenant. That means there is a single application which you are building that can be used for B2B. You might be selling it to other enterprise and you want to give a different kind of a login screen for each and every organization. Even you can also customize the login behavior. Okay, you are selling this to one of the customer, like how can I explain? Let's say there is a Swiggy app, right? Swiggy app is selling his application to different restaurant, right? It can be a different chain to which it is selling. So it can create a different login experience for each and every customer. Even it can allow its user to log in a special authentication behavior. Okay, this will allow this particular customer to log in with Google. This will allow user to log in with the just username and password. This will allow user to log in with the social authentication. So this kind of a custom requirement we can fulfill like this. So this is the library which I'm talking about, Nextjs Auth0. If you are just using nextauth, then you don't need to worry about these library because you have delegated all these things to nextauth. So there is a quick start. Otherwise, we'll try to understand all these are the environment variables which you need to populate for your Nextjs application. Auth secret, base URL, issuer, and a client ID and a client secret. Okay, so this is how you will get a user provider and handle auth. If you have done nextauth with Nextjs, then it's very easy to understand. You just need to create an API route, right? Inside API route, you just define the handle auth, which will be able to handle all the endpoints like API auth, login, logout, session. This is auth0.js you are creating. And once you log in, once you are able to already log in with the using Auth0, then this user provider will inject the session information in all of your child component. This can be part of your app.js or your layout. And this is how you can capture the user information. Once you're logged in, use user. If user is there, you will be able to get the user information. Otherwise, you just take the user to the login screen. So let's take a look onto the code. Here, this is the package.json. And here, this is the library, Nextjs Auth0, and we are using Nextjs 13.5. Okay. And here we will start with this is using the page-based directory structure. Here we have defined APIs. Inside you can see route.js. This is handling all the authentication. Like API auth, login, logout are being handled through this nextauth. And here, if you see, this is your root page and this is the layout. Inside layout, we are adding the user provider that is coming from nextauth Auth0 client. This is our login link. When you click on to the login, we are actually redirecting to the API route, API auth login. I mean, all these things are all same thing happens in the nextauth, but under the hood, here we are doing all these configurations with the Next.js Auth0. So once you logged in, I have another route, which is nothing but a server-side route. You should be able to access it once we are passing the token from the session. So here at the server side, I can also check if session exists. If you are already logged in, I should be able to get the access token and I can call the external API, which is created on the nodejs backend. You can pass the authorization header. And if the token is valid, then you should be able to get the data and you can pass this data in the response through this API. So here we are not writing code. I'm just going to showcase you how all these things are really working. Auth0 secret, base URL, issuer base URL that you can get from Auth0, client ID and client secret. This is your local configuration. And I just created, there is a simple demo of this dev server, which has this API shows this is particular route. And it is using this particular middleware, check JWT. Check JWT is doing nothing but, because this is the external Node.js server, which you are going to hit once you logged in. Once you logged in, you will be passing this authorization header, and that authorization header will have a secret. There you are passing authorization access token, right? So that we are validating through this middleware. It will extract a JWT secret from the authorization header, and it will validate it against your audience. So this is actually JWKS URL against this. If everything is good, it will allow you to access this particular endpoint. Otherwise, it will send you're not authorized. So this is our Auth0 console, and here you can see in the applications, I have created this demo application which I'm using. This has a client ID and a client secret, and you need to configure the logout URL, callback URL. Right? Once you create application, you need to specify the callback URL, logout URL. Okay, same thing you need to configure even if you are using Nextjs with the nextauth, the callback URL, the allowed logout URL. Okay, and you will get a client ID and a client secret. Okay, now I also want to talk about the organizations. What organizations is enabling is you can give a separate login screen when you are creating a SaaS application which is being used B2B. Let's say I build a SaaS application which I'm going to sell to different customers, and their different customers may have a different requirement of their login. So I can allow them to first use the organization prompt. I'm talking about this particular screen, enter organization. So this can be a different organization, can be your entry point. You enter your valid organization name, then you'll be allowed to see all different options. Let's say if I enter demo, then it gives me this login and password. What if I want to log in with a Google, Twitter, Facebook? What if there is another customer who wants to log in with SSO, maybe Azure, maybe SAML connections and all these things? So how we can configure that in Auth0? First of all, how can we configure this organization prompt? This is specific to Auth0, like Auth0 Authentication. How we can enable Auth0 Organization in your application. Create organization. So I will just create a test organization. Add organization. Okay, connections. You need to enable. Okay, I want to allow users to access this and this. Let's say enable the username Google Authentication, and I also want users to log in with username password for this particular organization. Okay, and members will get added. This is the overview. And if we go to the applications, this is our application. This application is already using these connections. We already enabled the connections for the organizations, right? Demo and test. Demo is just using username password as a connection. Connection means the way to log in. It can be, these are the different connections, or enterprise connections or social provider connections, right? passwordless database, which is username, password, social. You can enable any social connections, like social connection with a login with a Twitter, Google, Facebook. Here you can create a number of connections. You just need to configure client ID and secret ID from these applications. Okay, now if I try to log in, let's say if I try to log in with the test, you should be able to see login with the Google, right? Because I enabled this. When I'm doing a demo, it will only show me the username, password. So this kind of a custom behavior you can add in the B2B use case when you are building a SaaS product. Okay, now let's see how I'm able to enable. So here you need to go to the login screen. I mean, how to enable it is simple. Go to organization, just enable this feature, create organization, enable the connections. Apart from that, also you need to disable the universal login. Otherwise, this organization prompt will not be there. So I will just disable the universal login and I should be good with organization login. I love this feature because of customization you can put, and you can actually use this organization features. And I mean, if you are building a product and that is a SaaS and it is an MVP, it's very good feature which you can showcase. I mean, at the end, you might end up buying the services from Auth0 because it is providing everything to you. So let's try to see all these things in demo. First of all, I will just talk about the configuration. We need client ID, client secret. The base URL is the application base URL, which is localhost 3000, where this Nextjs application is working, and your issuer base URL and the audience. So these are two important. I mean, audience is mostly optional, but if you want to put it, then you need to, this audience is the API server against which you are going to validate your authorization token, which you are going to receive after getting login with Auth0. So coming to this configuration, here we see the application. This is my the client application from where I'm getting the client ID and secret ID, and this is Auth0 domain. Even if you go to your tenant, let's go to your tenant configuration, which you can see here, settings. Here also you can see your Auth0 tenant domain is tksharma.auth0.com. Right, that is your issuer base URL, client ID, client secret, and the audience. So audience is important if you are putting this in the configuration. If you are putting the audience incorrect, then your application will not work. Okay, so let's try to see this application in demo, how all these things are connected. So here, whatever the audience you are putting, like API audience, this is API audience, you can create one. What I'm saying is my API server is running on 3002, so I will create a API audience here. You can see, or you can create a new one. Just put a identifier or the API endpoint. So this API endpoint, I mean, the only thing is when you are getting logged in, Auth0 will give you opaque token. But if you are logging in by providing identifier, that means it is giving you authority that you can authorize your token against this API endpoint. This can be anything. Let's say HTTP 3000, or it can be your API gateway URL or the API. This is the authorizer server where your actual API resource exists. Okay, Auth0 cancel. So here I have already created for 3002 where my API server is running. And here in the configurations, I have specified 3002. I have a simple server setup, which is nothing but what it is doing. See, here I'm trying to access the API shows endpoint, and it is using this express JWT. It is extracting the token, and it is here also we need to, in the Nextjs application, you don't need to specify anything. You already have specified audience in your environment variables. So here my API server is running on port 3002. I can just run this simple demo example. Here I will pass test organization, which will ask me to log in with Google. I will choose my Google account, and then I should be able to access. So this is the external API, which is going to hit. I mean, if you just look at the code, it is nothing but it is going to get the access token, and it is going to hit this API and you can see your access token successfully validated. And how that is happening? That is happening through our app. So here, this is our page. I got the access token, and here I'm calling this API shows, right? So here API shows response. So it is going to hit this particular endpoint, passing the authorization header. That also we can check in the console. I will just open inspect. I will show you how we are passing the token. This is the API, and in the session internally you can see it is passing this whole JWT token, right? This is actually the token which is passing, and at the server side in this API server.js, where is our server? It is extracting the token, and then it is validating against this JSON. So this is actually signing key. So you can see this is the signing key, tksharma.auth0.com, well known GWKS JSON. You can give a pretty print. This is actually the signing keys against which this token is getting validated. If this token is expired, then you will get an authorized error. So currently, if you see, we are hitting the external API, right? It is validating. So what this particular demo is talking about? This demo is talking about all different use cases. First, we have configured the organizations. That means we can create a different use cases for the authentication among different organizations, like demo. Here, I don't have the Google authentication. I can create a sign up. I can create a user on the Auth0, and then only I can do the login. But if you have enabled the Google authentication, then I can simply switch to that and I can do the login. This is the internal call, and then here we got the profile. This is the response coming from the Google authentication. And if you just see the cookies, these are the session cookies which contains your token. App session, you can see. Another thing, you can just print the token which we are getting. This is the token, and I just try to see this. What is the token payload? And this is my token looks like, right? You can see issuer, audience. These are the audience, two audience which I have configured for this. So this token can be validated against these two API servers. Okay, because if you are setting the audience, then it will be populated in your token also. That's all our basic information. This is the org ID. What is this org ID? This is Auth0 Organization ID which you have configured. So let's go here. Yeah, because we were adding this user to the test organization. We can also do one thing. We can create new users and we can tag those users to the organizations. How can we segregate user? Because Auth0 is like a central database in this tenant, but we can segregate the users by mapping them to the organizations. So I can create a new user like, so I have created this user, just a random user. Now you can tag this user against an organization also. So you can see here demo organization, and I can add a member to this organization. So we can also play with this. So once user is created, you can also, if you have some pre-configured roles, you can assign the role also. So this is how. Now on this login prompt, if you can see this organization, now we have a member created for demo organization also. So this is the member, and we can log in with this email and the password which we have created. I will just do the logout, and I will just do the login to the demo organization, because it allows us to use only username password. And this profile is already created on the Auth0, so it should allow us to log in. And we got the token. We can see CSR, SSR, and external API. We are passing the authorization header to this same API, and we are able to access this. So this is the whole demo which talks about 5 different points. First of all, Auth0 setup. Second, Auth0 SDK for the Nextjs application. Third point is how to set up this for the client and server. Once you have the access token, how can you pass the access token to the API, and how the API middleware can validate your request by validating the authorization header. And third point is how these Auth0 organization works and how you can isolate the users among these organizations. So, and you can customize the login behavior under these different organizations. So thanks everyone. Thanks for watching.